How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Phil Talk Sports Podcast. Doing something a little different on the show here today. I'm joined by Hank, PR52. He's been my partner for many of these movie reviews, but we're going a step further and we're reviewing essentially a sports documentary instead of a sports movie. So, a lot of people are probably familiar with ESPN's 30 for 30 series. It's a series of sports documentaries. I've been a fan of them for a very long time. Some people maybe just watch one or two. I've watched maybe not all of them because they do every sport. They go as far as tennis and soccer and everything. So like it might hit your blind spots a little bit. But I've always been a fan of them, and I've always had it in the back of my brain to maybe review some of the more well-known 30 for 30s. And as I'm thinking this, the week of the Super Bowl, the Friday before the Super Bowl, they drop the Philly Special, which is a 30 for 30 documentary on it's about the play itself, but really it's about the 2017-18 Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're new here, me and Hank really like that team. So it seems like a really good plan to come in here and like it gives us a excuse to reminisce about that team, but we will talk specifically about the documentary. So Hank, I say all that to say thank you for being here. Welcome in. What is your experience with 30 for 30s? Because I remember really early they had Miami Hurricanes one that took off really well. I don't know. I took to them right away. I maybe didn't watch every single one, but like whenever they came out, it was a big deal. It was appointment television. This is before ESPN Plus, so if you didn't watch it live, you kind of had to wait for it to roll around. Now they're all on ESPN Plus, so you can watch them as your leisure. But what is your experience with this series? And prior to this one coming out, do you have a favorite?
I would say that I don't have a huge history with the series. I think when it was like the COVID period, I like binge watched a few of them. But there was like a point in time where like I really wasn't able to watch as many sports documentaries. Like I've always been a fan of the like America's Game series where it's like the team that wins the Super Bowl has like three or four players that like go through the entire season of them winning the Super Bowl. And then I think there was one for like missing rings. But the one I do remember the Miami Hurricanes one, and I do remember the 1998 Heisman Trophy winner. I can't really peg myself and say like I have a specific favorite one, but I do specifically remember recently this one coming out, the 1998 Heisman Trophy winner, and
Oh yeah,
it
yeah.
was everybody who was like a big name in that season, like Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning, and then Woodson was the Heisman Trophy winner, the first Heisman Trophy winner. But right, it wasn't it Woodson
Yeah,
from Michigan.
yeah.
He
First defensive
was
player for a long
first
time. Yeah.
defensive player to ever win it, and then like they were like, oh, what's the team that might win a championship? And then they kind of went through like the standings of who was the favorite to win it every single week, and I thought that was pretty cool. Like as somebody who doesn't really have a college football background, like it's one of those situations where I didn't grow up with a college football team. I kind of got a college football team when I went to college, which
Sure.
I'm sure that's the case with a lot of people, like unlike you, who you've always been a UCF fan. But like for me, I didn't really grow up with a college football team. I was always an Eagles fan, and then I find college football to be a little bit more relaxing. Like you can you can definitely like let loose a little bit more. Like me personally, like I'm less into it, so like I can be more excited when teams succeed or fail. But I would say the 1998 Heisman Trophy winner one was probably the best one that I've seen.
Right. It's definitely a regional thing with college football to take that quick detour. Like, I grew up watching both pro and college. It was that when I got closer to college age, I'm like, all right, I really want to go to UCF. I'm going to start following them. But even prior to that, like watching Florida State growing up was fun. My first college football game ever was a bowl game of Penn State and LSU. So, like, I follow Penn State even to this day because there was a point where I didn't know that college was going to be for me. So it's like maybe I just don't go to college and I just view this like something else, but I find it really strange. Segue to segue, people that aren't fans of schools they go to. Like I understand if you grow up, let's say you really grow up in a Notre Dame household. Like okay, I get it, you can do that, But if you then go to Western Kentucky, you should at least have some Western Kentucky pride,
You
some
you
level.
you know what fan base we're talking about, right?
I mean, there's a bunch of them, but
You know the main one, the one where specifically, they were interviewing them and they were like, "Did you go to Michigan? No. Do you
right.
live in Michigan? No. Have you ever been to Michigan? No." And it's like, all right, so
Yeah.
do you have any connections to Michigan? No, I've never been to Michigan. I'm
And
from
if the tape
Dallas.
keeps rolling, the next question is, can you spell Michigan? And then
Yeah.
they walk
Are,
off. But yeah.
are you a Cowboys fan? Yes, I am. Okay, this
How'd
makes
you know?
perfect
Yeah, how'd you
sense.
know? I mean, there's a few of them, like where I live, a lot of Gator fans that way, and plenty of people go to Florida, so it's not like it's a like Notre Dame. I understand because it's like the smallest student base per year that there is. It's a very prestigious school to get into. So if you can't get into Notre Dame but want to I will follow that logic. But like
and
Florida,
it's
plenty of people get in.
and it's a Catholic, and it's like now a Catholic school. I guess it's
Sure.
always been a Catholic
Yeah.
school, and there are a lot of
Mhm.
Catholics that live on the East Coast,
Yeah.
in the Northeast. So
Hmm.
it makes perfect sense.
I'm gonna wander
Not
out
to,
a little
not to
more.
go after, not to
Yeah.
go after Catholics here, but
Sure. I mean, I was raised Catholic, all that. I saw a meme earlier this football season that said Penn State is just Notre Dame for Italians, and as an Italian, I definitely agree. I am way off base here. I'm going to reel us back into 30 for 30s here. They came out swinging back in 2009. That's when this series started. And like you said, there's been America's Game and Missing Rings and even E60, which is ESPN's kind of original crack at this. They still make E60s, but they pretty much lend all their resources now to 30 for 30s. The difference with those, I've noticed, the same people produced and directed all of those. Before watching one, it could be like the America's Game. You could watch Super Bowl 12 or you could watch Super Bowl 42. They're all kind of made the same way. You know what to expect. What I think
Mhm.
the charm is on 30 for 30s, everyone is produced and directed by somebody different. So they're going to have totally different flavors. So the first one they ever made was King's Ransom. It's about when Wayne Gretzky got traded. And I'm not even a big hockey guy. That one's fantastic. There's another hockey one. There's a guy that faked his way to purchasing the New York Islanders. I don't know if you ever seen that one. The guy had literally no money in his pocket, but forged all the documents and owned the team for almost a whole season before he got busted. That one's great. That one's called Big Shot. Definitely check that one out. Um, but the
that that
first
that
season,
almost
go ahead.
reminds me of Bishop Sycamore or something like that. You know.
It's that times a million. Yeah, I would recommend that one. Early on, USFL. Who killed the USFL? Spoiler alert: Donald Trump did. And that one, while he's not the director, Mike Tolan did that one. Guy from NFL Films. That's the first time I ever saw Bill Simmons because he was talking about the whatever team was in the Boston Breakers or whatever. Little did I know I'd grow up to like listen to his podcast several times a week. So like there's the Muhammad Ali one. There's the Len Bias issue. There's Jimmy the Greek, the Winning Times, Reggie Miller versus the Knicks. I can go on and on. They actually used to. I'm gonna reach over here. They used to sell like the DVD sets for those watching on YouTube. I have 1 and 2. To my knowledge, they never made 3 on discs. I think at that point ESPN Plus was in full swing, and you could just watch them on there. Straight out of LA, the one about like NWA always rocking Raider gear and how that meshed together. I'm not even out of the first season, and there's just really good ones. Clearly, the success of 30 for 30 led to things like The Last Dance being made, the Celtic City, things like that. Just a really fantastic thing, and I think this has gotten so successful it has taken some of the bullets out of the gun that would make sports movies. I think the reason we get less sports movies is you could make a movie, and like we saw like the Kurt Warner movie, right? They made a movie about Kurt Warner's life. Kurt
Mhm.
Warner could have had a 30 for 30 made of him. You could go either way. Instead of, if this was 20 years ago, there would have been a cheesy Nick Foles movie made about this Super Bowl. But instead of having to find actors that look nothing like the people, like that Aaron Hernandez documentary and all that other stuff, you
Yeah,
just make a. Go ahead.
didn't Kevin James? It wasn't he Sean Payton, and he was like a
Yes.
really
Yeah.
really bad Sean Payton too.
Yes.
Like
And that was just a Netflix
he looks
movie.
nothing
So
like Sean Payton, or like
right.
Nicolas Cage is about to play John Madden.
I heard that too. So you can go that route. You can make these really cheesy adaptations, or you stick to the facts. You sit the real people down, and you tell the real story. So I totally understand why people are leaning more towards that than they are, the cheesy movies and the remakes and having to find people that look even remotely like the people you're trying to talk about. So I say all that to say I really like 30 for 30s. We still have sports movies we're going to do. We're nowhere near the end of our list, but I think from time to time we're going to reach into these. Nick gets to pick the next one. Me and him will be on here in a month or so with his choice of one. You mentioned a recent one that you liked with the 98 Heisman. Long Gone Summer, which is the home run race between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire.
I
That
saw
one's
that
like
one.
that one's like 2.5 hours, so really strap in for
I
that.
saw that one
But
too.
that one's great. That one's great.
Mhm.
So I say all that to say, 10 minutes into the show, we're doing the Philly special one. This one dropped on us the Friday before the Super Bowl, and it is directed by Shannon Furman. And if that name rings a bell, she is big into Hard Knocks. She's a lot of the secret sauce that make Hard Knocks go, which I could totally see why. I feel the Hard Knocks interview style as I watch this thing. And like I said, all these are made by somebody different, so they all get different flavor. The strategy they went with this one is they sit down with, because while it's about the season and the team and the championship, it focuses in on the Philly special, the one play at the end of the half, Trey Burton and Nick Foles, the whole deal. They choose to interview pretty much exclusively the five men that touched the ball on that drive, on that play, and Doug Peterson, because he made the call. And I thought that was a really cool way to do it because there's a million other people that you could have interviewed, but you're almost like, where's the line? There's a million
Yeah.
people, literally a million people. I really liked the thought of that, and I will start with this question: do you think that was always the choice, or was it a really creative way to not have to talk to Carson Wentz about this season? Because either you don't want to, or maybe he wasn't super in the mood to sit down and talk about this. That is my conspiracy right off the right. I like the direction, but I can't help but wonder if that's why they went that way.
I think I want to go with the first one, that it was just a creative way to do it. You could interview a whole bunch of other people. There were a lot of other people who were involved with the play. You could have interviewed Press Taylor. People don't really know who Press Taylor is. A little known secret: Press Taylor was the guy who brought the play to the Philadelphia Eagles. He was like a quality control coach who eventually became the Eagles quarterbacks coach and then became the Jaguars offensive coordinator. So I think that it was real creative what they did, in the sense of you interview Jason Kelce because he was the guy who snapped the ball. He snapped the ball to Corey Clement. If you remember Corey Clement, then you're a real Eagles fan. If you don't, I mean, you should probably read a book. And then Trey Burton, who threw the ball to Nick Foles. And then, of course, Doug Peterson, who was the one who didn't actually call the play, actually agreed to the calling of the play. I had wished that they would have said the exact play that they called, which was a play where Nick Foles runs like a read option and runs it right. And they said that in practice, the only two times they'd ever run it, it was a fumble. So thank God that Nick Foles called the timeout there. But I thought that it was a creative way to actually do it. As for not having to interview look, like I don't think they were ever gonna. Number one, I think that if you ever tried to interview Carson Wentz about that play, he would probably just hang up on you, which is understandable, seeing as though he really still has not gotten over the fact that Nick Foles was the quarterback in the Super Bowl and kind of stole his glory. But no, I thought it was a creative way to do it, and you found the exact people who were involved, and they were the ones who know exactly what happened. And it's just very interesting to hear the story from them specifically. All I can say is that it it's very like Jason Kelce, Nick Foles, Doug Peterson centered. That's the only
Sure.
thing. You don't hear as much from Trey Burton. Oh, would it be great to hear the background of Trey Burton and how he was a specialty? They do like gloss over it, but it's like they don't really talk about what Trey Burton meant to that season, and they don't really talk about what Corey Clement meant to that season because he was actually a very important player. They just kind of mentioned, oh, he was the one who caught the ball and then pitched it to Trey Burton, you know. But
Right.
I thought it would have been good to give a little bit of more background about those players specifically outside of like the 2 minutes we got out of them.
I agree that I don't think it was out of the like this was all set up to not talk to Carson because anytime he has been like talked to like brought up or interviewed, he relatively takes the high road. Like you can tell he's not super pumped to talk about it all,
No,
but
no.
I've never actually heard him say a bad thing about
Mm.
Nick Foles. I've heard him say not bad things, but like slighted things about Jalen Hurts. But that's two different conversations. Um, I will push back a little bit. I did like I knew of Trey Burton because back to our college football
Mm.
upbringings. I'm not a Gator fan. I didn't watch Gator games live, but there used to be this thing on Sunday mornings called Breakfast with the Gators, and they would just replay the Gator game from the day before, and I would watch that in the morning, waiting for NFL to start. And I
Mhm.
remember Trey Burton at Florida for a very short time. Played quarterback. He was a big quarterback, even like he's essentially Tebow size but taller, which is crazy to think about. Eventually moves to tight end. I remember him as a player. I remember drafting, but oh, that's the guy that like I remember him as much as I would have remembered like Riley Cooper coming into
Yeah.
the league. Like I remember him as a Florida Gator catching touchdowns, like a good player. I
But
agree. Like you said, they gloss over that. They don't give you his whole story. But what I will push back a tiny bit, I really like. Maybe it wasn't as long as we would have liked, but I really like the Corey Clement segments in this because he mentions like he's from New Jersey. He doesn't get drafted. They call him immediately after to be an unsigned free agent, and like, yeah, we'll send a flight, we'll get your information, and you'll be here in the morning. And he's like, I'm in Philly right now. Like, I'll see you guys in an hour. And he like either got in a car or hopped on the subway. Like, really showed that he was, a hometown guy. And if my timeline is correct, whenever this was recorded, I assume this was maybe shot a year ago.
mhm.
Corey Clement may have been a member of the Cowboys as this is being recorded. If my time not 100% certain, but that could very well have been the case. But like you said, if you know Corey Clement or you don't, was really gonna and how much love you have for him. Even though he put that star on his helmet later in his career, I will never say a bad thing about Corey Clement.
No, he was on the Cowboys in 2021.
Okay,
I do have one thing to say about Corey Clement, and it's no hatred towards Corey Clement because I could never hate him. But I thought it was kind of interesting in the documentary. He said that he came from a family of Eagles fans, and they were like his hometown team. But did you know he when he got signed by the Cowboys, he specifically announced that he was a lifelong Cowboys fan. If you go on Google AI, it will specifically say that he admitted that. Now, I don't know if he was like mad or whatever, but
yeah,
he did say that. I remember him saying that back in like 2020 when he was signed, or 2021. He did admit that he was a lifelong Cowboys fan. And I thought to myself, when he said, "Oh, I come from a family of Eagles fans. They're my hometown team." I was like, "Wait, were you an Eagles fan and a Cowboys fan?" Like that didn't make any sense to me. I'm like one of those people who, when I hear something like that, I kind of recall in my memory things that people have said, and I specifically remember him saying that. Maybe again, maybe he was like mad that the Eagles didn't sign him, but that was just one of those things where I thought to myself, that's kind of weird. But like I'm not saying that like they should have like spent like 10 minutes on both of them, but like a lot of people don't know who Trey Burton was.
it's
Like a
true.
lot of
Yeah,
people don't a lot of people might think, "Oh, Trey Burton must have just played tight end on the Eagles." When like what people don't understand was that Trey Burton was like a huge special teams player when Chip Kelly was the head coach. And I remember he he once blocked a punt and someone else like Chris Maragos recovered it for a touchdown. And then one year we played the Giants, someone blocked the punt and he returned it for a touchdown.
Did the one he
So
block, was that the Dolphins game that we had all this crazy stuff and then they ended up beating us? Was that game?
maybe, but I remember
Yeah.
there was a Patriots game too.
Yeah. Was that when Sam Bradford beat Tom Brady randomly? Was that game?
Yeah.
Because that game had
Yeah.
crazy. That had, I think, Malcolm Jenkins had a 100-yard pick six in that one. But anyway, I'll pull back to this. There are other people that could have been talked about. So let's play this little exercise. 1 to 3 people, if you could add interviews to this to make it a little meatier. This 30 for 30, and they have no set time. That's another thing I like about these. They're as long or as short as they need to be to tell the story. This one was just under 52 minutes, which I found funny. Super Bowl 52. Let's say we're trying to stretch it to an hour. You have 8 minutes to play with. Name 1 to 3 people you would like to have added interviews to flush this out a little more.
Lane Johnson.
Okay.
Because he touches his back and goes, Lane, Lane, Lane. Well, he's going like the kill, whatever.
Yeah.
I would say him. They brought up LeGarrette Blount a few times. So maybe him being a person that they interview for this. And maybe they interview Frank Reich.
That's a good shout. For someone they didn't interview, Garrett Blunt gets like a decent amount of screen time in this. Like they show a lot of his on the sideline banter. Like after the play, he like runs up, he's like, "Good call, Dougie," or whatever he says. So for someone who doesn't get interviewed, he probably has the most screen time as someone who didn't get interviewed outside of Carson Wentz because they don't shy away from Carson at all. They show his MVP level season for that 10-11 game stretch or whatever. So like they don't shy away from Carson at any point. I would say if you were going to bring up other people, because obviously they show the end of this game, maybe them sitting together, Barnett and Brandon Graham would be kind of cool. Like they can talk out the fumble at the end. That would have been pretty neat. That would have been my 1 and 2. But yeah, LeGarrette Blount too. I mean, he scored the touchdown. Clement had 100 yards receiving. He actually led the team in receiving in this game, in large part due to like a 45-yard catch and run that he has. But those are my big 2. Frank Reich for sure. John DeFilippo even could have been interesting because he has a lot more to do with that. But my favorite little insight, and this goes back to like I think Clement was well represented. They're all standing around and they're talking about like what were you most nervous about, and he was like getting the snap I was really nervous about, and Foles is like confused. He's like, it's Jason Kelce, like what do you got to worry about? And he's standing next to Nick and he's like, because of this height difference, and the height difference from Corey to Nick is like me to you, like it's easily like several inches, and I never thought of that before. So that could have obviously been a disaster. And I remember hearing that they mentioned it, Doug mentions it in this, they had this play in the bag for the NFC Championship game, never ended up needing it because they were up pretty much from the get-go. But when they practiced it leading up to it, they practiced it twice, and both times Trey like sails it just out of the back of the end zone. So maybe that other week in a bag was good, but the inside of Corey being like because of the height difference, I thought was really interesting and like something I never thought of before.
Yeah, I remember them saying something like we had to like pretend we weren't doing something shisty, but we were actually doing something shisty. And Nick goes like, I tried not to smile.
Yeah.
To like the way that we were going to do something very irregular. And I thought that was very interesting because it's like, how does a team set up for like a fake punt or something like that, or a fake field goal? Like, how are they going to figure out how they're going to show the other team that, oh, we're going to do this, but no, actually we're going to do that.
Right.
And I thought it was very interesting how they went through that and how they wanted to show that it's a normal play. We're not doing anything special, but just kidding. We are doing something very special. And, this is going to be a part of, well, actually they didn't know it was going to be a part of sports history as much as it is today. But, at the time they were like, oh, we just need to make sure we score a touchdown on this play or else we'll look really foolish.
Yeah, leaving way too many points because there's plenty of people at that moment. They're like, just take the 3. It's Tom Brady. Like, don't miss your chances to get points, which I totally understand from that perspective. But I really like how, and they finally addressed the elephant in the room that when Nick runs up to Doug, like the play isn't called Philly Philly, but that's what he says, and Doug immediately knows what he's talking about. And then Jason Kelce even mentions when he runs in the huddle, he's like, "What do I don't even know what oh, that's what you mean." Okay, so like that little disconnect, but they're all on the same page that it all snaps together. And then the other interesting part of like the lane thing you're talking about, he yells like he has to get his attention, but it's not loud because it's a Super Bowl crowd. Because he's like, admittedly, that was actually kind of awkward because I'm screaming at this guy like it's when you play NCAA and the stadium pulses all the way up, but like the Super Bowl crowd is not going to be like that. So that was definitely awkward for him, but for some reason that did not tip anybody off and everything. The only thing they don't bring up, because the other co-director of this is like a Philly person, and maybe it's so this Super Bowl would have been an NBC Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so because of that, they don't have to worry who they piss off. I would have liked if they came at Al Michaels' head a little bit for his like terrible announcing of the play and just the blatant like the from Chris Collinsworth. Like, there's no reason they can't piss those guys off. They don't work for ESPN or anything. So I wouldn't have minded if they came at their head a little bit because we talk about it probably too much just in our chat about like the way Al Michaels phoned that game in and how Chris Collinsworth clearly wanted the Patriots to win.
Yeah. Uh-oh. And it's a touchdown. Touchdown, Alshon Jeffrey. They were definitely phoning. Al Michaels was definitely phoning it in. He was giving a Pat Summerall Super Bowl 36 type of performance where like Pat Summerall's at the very, very end of his career.
Right.
He's like, I just want to get out of here, John. Just get me out of the booth. Or you see. But yeah, they definitely.
And we've seen this since then on like those Thursday night games that are just boring, and you can tell the only thing he cares about is maybe the point spread at certain points of the game, and he even like he's like, oh, that cuts the lead to 5. That might be interesting to some. Like, he drops those little nuggets in there. Yeah. But that's the only other thing that I would have liked to see.
It's because Al Michaels is a New Yorker, and I'm pretty sure he's a New Yorker. And then Chris Collinsworth is just he likes to hang on to the elite quarterbacks of the flavor elite quarterbacks of the.
Yeah, this is before his Mahomes love. Before the Mahomes love, it was Brady love. Al Michaels, born November 12th, 1944, Brooklyn, New York. You are correct.
Yeah, so it makes sense. He's either a Giants or a Jets fan, and all I know about Giants and Jets fans is that they either hate the Eagles or they hate Eagles fans. So,
right,
that's what I know.
So I don't know about you, outside of even the documentary style, like when this game is on replay on like NFL Network or whatever, which it'll be 10 times this year, just randomly. The part of the game, because they mention it in this in the lead up to the end of the game, the part of the game where the Patriots come back and actually take a 1-point lead, it's been 8 years. I still get nervous when I watch the replay. Is that just me? Like, you literally feel like they're going to steal it from you. I remember as the game is going on, when that Hail Mary is in the air, my brain is saying, all right, Gronk is coming down with this, and then they're going to find the NFL rule book and see that 2 pages are stuck together, and when you open them up, there's actually a 3-point conversion play that you can go for, and the Patriots were going to go for that, get it, win by 1, run out of there. It's going to look like that last game at Cleveland Stadium where bottles are being thrown. That was what the whole time, the 8 seconds that ball was in the air, which felt like 3 weeks, that was what my brain was doing. So the fact that even now, 8 years later, it did it in this documentary. It doesn't when I watch the replay of the game. It's fun. Luckily, we don't have that issue with the other Super Bowl we won because we got 2 of them now. But the only other thing I would have maybe like to see in this. No parade footage. I thought was strange. I feel like we could have got that at the end.
The
Again, it
Mummer.
was the mummers, all that. I mean, I think they bring parts of that up.
Mhm.
But this was it was great. It was fun. I'm overthinking things, but they dropped this. Not that I would have liked them to maybe keep it in the can for 2 years, but like this would have been fun to be like at the 10-year anniversary. Like drop this in 2028 instead. That would have been cool in the moment, but like I'm glad I got to watch it now. I wouldn't have necessarily wanted to wait 2 years for this.
Mhm.
But I remember thinking like, oh, the 8-year anniversary. What is the significance of that? Why are we waiting? Because like
We
these,
won by 8 points.
there you go. That's it. And at the time, this is another reason I hate that Rams Patriots Super Bowl. At the time, I could say we beat the Patriots by more points in the Super Bowl than they beat anybody in any of their Super Bowls, and that was true until they beat the Rams. So
Yeah.
another reason I hate that Super Bowl.
I would say, because I remember the whole Super. There isn't a single thing that I don't remember about that game when watching it.
Right.
I specifically remember how lucky the team was that those 2 touchdown catches were confirmed as touchdown catches, because I remember the Corey Clement one. I look, like, I know that everyone says that he bobbled it, and I'll come out and admit it that I do think that the Eagles were very fortunate that he was to get that, because I do think that he did bobble it. I just remember thinking to myself, there's no way they're gonna call this a touchdown because, again, it's like the Patriots. It's like obviously, and then when they were like, it's a touchdown, I was like, whoa, like, are you serious? And then with the Zach Ertz one, I was like, all right, they called that a touchdown. They're going to call this not a touchdown. And then they did. And I was like, awesome. But I remember when the team was down by 1 point. And I had said that whole season, I was like, we might not have the best players, but after Jake Elliott hit that field goal, I was like, there's no way we're not going to win there's no way we're not going to be special.
Right.
And I specifically remember that just had to have been the most clutch drive I had ever seen.
Yes.
And then when they scored the touchdown, the bar that I was at just went nuts. And people were going up to me. I was wearing an Eagles shirt and Eagles hat. They were like, congratulations, man. I was like, no. I specifically remember going around, putting my hands down like, no. We're up by, it was what, 35 to 31 or something like that.
Yeah, because then we kicked the other 3 to
No, it wasn't 35 to 30. It was 38 to 31.
31, and then we get the other.
I remember we can't celebrate right now. This is not something to celebrate about. And then when Brandon Graham hit the ball out of Brady's hand and it fumbled and it was recovered by Barnett, more people were coming up to me. And I was like, no. You are not doing that. This is the Patriots. Yeah. You don't understand. I was like, remember I specifically went up to people, and maybe it was almost like I was speaking to like a ghost or something like that. And I was like, remember last year. Remember the Falcons. Remember they were down 28-3 and they found a way to win the game. I was like, look, we could miss this field goal, and 2 minutes for Brady is an eternity. Okay.
Right.
Like, we remember, what was it for Mahomes? 13 seconds was an eternity to kick a field goal. I was like, we score a touchdown here. And then when they kicked the field goal, I was like, okay, 8 points. That's not ideal. I remember thinking that. Not ideal.
It's a decent spot to be in, but not.
If we can stop them, then that's it. And I was like, if we can just force them to throw a Hail Mary, I was like, Brady's not going to complete a Hail Mary, is what I remember.
His arm isn't that at that point.
No, it's not that his arm wasn't good.
No,
it was just,
that's like that would have been a 70-yarder on the button, That would have been an Aaron Rodgers style.
Yeah, but I remember both of the Super Bowls that he had lost previously, those were Hail Mary throws, and he completed neither of them.
Yeah.
So I was like, once we were up by 8, I was comfortable about it. And then there's a video that Kelly made of me. I'm watching. I take a deep
and I've seen this.
the ball's in the air, like you said, for what felt like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was just incomplete. But the thing was, I didn't notice the time on the clock. It took me about 2 seconds to
Yeah,
register.
in that video, you like look around first, and
Yeah, I'm like looking around, like, is this really happening? And then,
Mhm.
like in the TV, you can see those what was it? McLeod and
Jalen Mills.
Robinson and Jalen Mills um and I think it was I think the other one was Donnell Ellerby, who was a
Mhm.
linebacker who played for like 2 games, and they're just
Yeah,
like looking at each other. And Corey Graham, they're all looking at each other, and they're like celebrating. And
and
then the
Foles is doing this, and
yeah, he's like,
Nate
what just
Nate
happened?
Sudfeld is talking to him, and you can tell he's not hearing a word he's saying.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then the Gatorade dumps on Doug's head. Like, all that stuff happens at once. It was very eerily not similar to Super Bowl 59. But
right.
yeah, I
So
mean,
I gotta rewind a second to talk the Corey Clement touchdown in real time. I'm just like, oh, what? That's like the greatest fucking throw I've ever seen.
mm,
That's a touchdown. And then you see the replay, and you see like the picture that people put on Twitter all the time about his foot being out of bounds. They're just using the third step. You can like rewind it an inch and
mhm,
screenshot that, and there's 2 feet in bounds. There's the movement that you talked about, and it's like the only time I ever remember in a Super Bowl where you get the recording of the referees explaining why it's a touchdown. It's
mhm,
like he has it here, and he himself moves it to his forearm instead of his tricep, but
yeah,
he has control the whole time. They explain Hockley explains it. I've never seen that in real time like that
mhm,
before or since. The Ertz one, because I
yeah,
was at my cousin's house. The fact that you watched this in public, you're a madman. I never would have done that. So I was at my cousin's house. He's also an Eagles fan. Shout out John. He had a couple of his other friends over, and I'm about to kill one of his friends over the Zach Ertz touchdown because he's like, "Oh, he bobbled it." I'm like, the second that ball crosses the plane in
mhm,
midair, he could
yeah.
have taken that ball and thrown it behind him. It does not matter. He
I
broke. I'm trying to explain to this Panthers fan friend that he had, and I'll never forget. I'm like, because at first I'm just like, well, no, like you got to think about it, man. Like he crossed the plane, it's over. He's like, yeah, but he bobbled it. I'm like, the play, that's
yeah,
not even the play anymore. Now,
right,
granted, had he went to the ground and it popped out, it would have been this whole what to do about. But
mhm,
the ending result would have been, no, dude, you broke the plane. But it
yeah.
is just added gravitas that it pops up and it lands back in his lap like it's a whole deal.
I'll look, like, I'll agree with you on the Zach Ertz one. Like, that was obviously a touchdown.
Yeah,
With Corey Clement, it's debatable depending on who you speak to.
right. I just in
Obviously,
real time, I didn't question it. On the
yeah,
replay, I'm like, ooh, wait a minute,
yeah.
wait,
You're
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah. Mhm.
maybe. And obviously, Chris Collins was going,
I don't know, Jim.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But with the Ertz one, I think people were really upset because we all remember earlier at the end of the season, there was a game between the Patriots and the Steelers where a very similar thing happened, where Jesse James catches the
Yes.
ball and he's going to the ground, but he's also leaning the ball forward, and as he hits the ground, the ball bounces out of his hands when he's in the end zone.
Right.
And I thought that was a touch.
Same. Same.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I think in when it comes to like consistency basis, people are really bitter about that because they're like, oh, why is it with Ertz and not with Jesse James? Because the thing with Ertz is he takes 3 steps and he makes a football move, which is what they're all looking for. The
Right.
dive is the football move. If
And he technically breaks a tackle because the guy gets a hand on his hip, so like
yeah,
contact has been made and all that stuff.
yeah,
So
and if
yeah,
the ball hadn't reached the end zone, it would have been a fumble,
yes,
but the ball popped right back into his hand. And
yeah, never,
the
yeah.
fact that he went into the end zone with the ball, it was way more obvious than what people want to
I
say.
think you
Yeah.
said it. I'm gonna echo it, but I felt both were touchdowns, but this
Mhm.
one was more obviously a touchdown. That other
Yeah.
one, it's amazing. We've played football for over 100 years, and you still get those plays that you're like, I've never seen a ball do that. I've never seen a player do that. whether it be the Des Bryant catch, whether it be either of the catches we just talked about, the play at the beginning of this past season where the Ravens lost to the Chiefs because like the foot was somehow inbounds and out of bounds at the same time, like all these crazy things.
Or the Ravens versus the Steelers where they're like, was it an interception or was it an interception or was it a touchdown or something like that? I forgot.
In some weird way.
Yeah.
But I will leave it on this. I felt this was a great interpretation of that season, focused around the one. They basically zoomed all the way in and then zoomed all the way out. So this was not about the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles. This was about a play in a Super Bowl, but we're going to tell you what happened before it, right after it, and after. So it was a unique way to go about it. I don't know what makes something 30 for 30 worthy, because there's a lot of things out there that I'm like, that got a 30 for 30? That's a little, like, we dunked on the Jets a little earlier. I guess I'll do it one more time. The New York Sack Exchange got a 30 for 30. Like, that was a fun team, but, like, that'd be like the 92 Eagles defense getting a 30 for 30. Like, that was a great team, but they didn't win anything.
Yeah, I would say the main difference is the fact that, like, I think it's just the fact that line was, I think it's like the name. Like the name. I think
the name helps.
If you got a nickname like the Purple People Eaters or something like that.
We'll probably get one at some point, yeah.
Or like like
for example, I mentioned like the 92
Hogs.
The 92 Eagles defense don't have a 30 for 30, but there is a Reggie White documentary that heavily talks about it. Why? Because he was the Ministry of Defense. It's got a name in there. So I will actually end on this as we get out of here. What is something, and I can fact check it because I'm a little more locked in than you with these. What is something that has not had a 30 for 30 that you would like to see have a 30 for 30?
That's a really good question. Is there, I'm sure like anything I could guess either,
and I'm also thinking, because I just thought of that question. I didn't have something in the chamber for me.
I would say like, do they have a 30 for 30 on like backup quarterbacks?
No, not specifically. That could be interesting.
Like I would like to see a 30 for 30 on like Steve Bono or something like that. Like
you know that Netflix show Quarterbacks that's out?
Yeah.
And you know how like they've been struggling to find quarterbacks that want to do it, and now there's a show called Receivers instead.
Yeah. Just
rebrand the show into backup quarterbacks. Because guess what? Week to week, they're way more interesting because of all the other stuff they have to do. That's a solid one.
Just because of the fact that like they like a lot of them like never get onto the field like ever, and the only time in which they do is if the starting quarterback is sucking, or like the starting quarterback gets injured, or if the team is blowing the other team out by a lot. It's kind of like one of those situations where like the team where the punter doesn't punt. Like I think it was like earlier this season, the Colts didn't punt like for like 2 or 3 games.
Yeah. And then I think the Chiefs had a run of that a year or two ago.
Hold on. This is even better. And I've talked about this before. Do one on Tom Tupa.
Yes, explain. Run with that for a second. Tell the people.
So if you don't know who Tom Tupa is, Tom Tupa, well, before he was the punter for the Super Bowl 37 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Tupa was a punter who could play quarterback. And I always thought to myself, like, okay, there have been quarterbacks who can punt. And of course, there are like punters who can throw passes, but you don't usually want them to throw passes. You kind of do it if you have to. But it was like a situation where it was the New York Jets. I think it was like the 1998 season or the 1997 season, one of those. And Bill Parcells was the head coach. And they were playing against the New England Patriots. And the quarterback for the Jets was Vinny Testaverde. And Vinny Testaverde gets injured. And Vinny Testaverde can't finish the game. And I forgot exactly why they put him in, but they put in their punter, and their punter's name was Tom Tupa. And Tom Tupa plays this game. Oh, I know why. It had something to do with they only had one active quarterback in the game
Right.
or something like that, and that was Vinny. And they were like, "Oh, Vinny Testaverde," which is ridiculous. I don't know why you would only have one active quarterback in the game. Ask the
Do you want an answer? It's because it's the New York Jets, but go on.
Because it's the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're the 40, because you saw the 49ers and you saw how they like lost two quarterbacks, and you had Jimmy Garoppolo chuckling on the sidelines to the chagrin of 49ers fans. And then he throws 2 touchdowns in the game, and the Bill Parcells had like a decision at halftime. It was like, okay, you can either bench, you can either like deactivate Tom Tupa and put in your backup quarterback. I forgot who his backup quarterback was. It's not really that important.
Looks like Rick Mirer.
Oh, that's why he didn't want to do. Okay, Rick Mirer, famous quarterback. Everyone thought he was going to be amazing, but he couldn't throw to his right or something like that.
So as I'm reading on this, because I'm updating myself, I know this story too. Tupa was in 6 for 10, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Then they pull him for Rick Mirer, who goes 4 of 11 for 28 yards and 2 interceptions.
Yeah,
which sets up the game-winning field goal for Adam Vinatieri. I agree with you that this could make a great 30 for 30. I believe there was at least an E60 or an NFL short, because that's the only reason I know about this, is I remember an NFL Films
there was an
bit
NFL
on this. So at least clearly people agree with you that this is a story that needed to be told.
But like it's very interesting because this was just such a dumb decision because Tom Tupa, the punter, mind you, these guys like always get trash talked. I know Phil probably hates it because it's the brand, or because he's all about the brand. But like people are always like, punters and kickers aren't real football players. But here was the point in time where a punter actually almost saved the game, but didn't because of a really, really dumb, awful decision.
Yeah, and probably would have saved said game if allowed to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2. One, both are like, this is very on brand for Phil. One, way more so. So I'll say that one first. Again, there's an E60 or an ESPN piece. But the life and career of John Dornbos, I think, is clearly like, for people that don't know the whole story, I don't have the time. I'd need another 47 minutes to tell you. Long snapper for the Eagles. Second longest tenured player at this point in Eagles history. At one point, played the most games. And some of you are thinking, like, what could be so special about a long snapper, regardless of how long he played in the NFL? Nearly won America's Got Talent after his career as a magician. A lot of tragedy in his early life. His father murdered his mother when he was like 11. Went to live with his aunt and uncle. Just a crazy story. I have his book. And my favorite thing about I've read the book, and then it's also on Audible. And I don't know how often you like do audiobooks, but it's read by him, so you just feel like he's telling you his life. So it's incredible. Like I said, there is an hour-ish long ESPN piece that'll give you the gist of it for people interested. That one's a little somber. Another one I think that would be really interesting, because they've done the USFL. They've done some of these smaller gimmick leagues of sports. I think like a rise and fall of arena football would be interesting, because there was like a 6 to 10 year stretch that like it was on ESPN. The Arena Bowl meant something. NFL owners were buying in. Jay Gruden is a quarterback, and John Gruden is sitting in the Arena Bowl and stuff. Bobby Wagner's dad, Barry Wagner, is like the Jerry Rice of arena football. He's the greatest arena football player that anyone's ever seen. That'd be a great story to tell. So that would be.
Apparently, I didn't know this, but Matt Nagy played in the Arena Football League.
I don't doubt that. Yeah, and there's a surprising amount of people that have played in the Arena League that you would have never thought. And again, you're covering. These things need to either cover a long stretch of time, or they need to hyper focus on one particular event. And like your Tom Tupa one, your ending's built in because he eventually wins the Super Bowl with the Bucks, like you said.
Mhm.
So that one would have been great.
But I don't think he ever played. But they don't ever put him at quarterback.
No. But the fact that he does get a ring as a punter,
Yeah.
is great for sure. No, so those are my two for sure. So that's kind of the fun for this one. Like I said, we're venturing off into something new.
They have a Linsanity one, right?
That was another one I was gonna say. Like some of these, I don't know if it was because they used to make these and E60s, and some of them were just E60s instead. So I'd have to go back and look. That's an obvious one too. Really, the Carmelo trade to New York could be one too. Just thinking, just the way all that went down. I think there's a lot of baseball ones because like there's so much story in like older baseball stuff. Like there's one about the Miracle Mets. It's called Once Upon a Time in Queens. It's like 8 parts. I don't know what in the world they're thinking. Like that's an incredible team and everything, but like these should not be more than.
Was this?
I'll give you 2 parts.
Was this the '86 Mets?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
but
I would hate to watch something. I'd hate to watch 8 parts about the Mets.
Yeah,
like
that's like watching
thing that they've done over the past 40 years.
That's like watching The Last Dance and you hate Michael Jordan. It's like, why are you doing that to yourself?
Like, you're watching The Last Dance and you're Isaiah, whatever his name is.
Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. Who's in it, by the way?
Or you're Dennis or you're not Dennis, you're Scottie Pippen.
At this point, yeah. I mean, he's in it because they were still boys when that got made, but
No, they weren't.
Yeah. But he's in it. He's interviewed.
I know
he's
in it.
Yeah.
But they were not boys. That weird. It didn't Scottie Pippen's ex-wife get married to Michael Jordan's son?
UCF former basketball player Marcus Jordan. He sure
did.
That's
real awkward.
Yes.
That ought to make a really awkward Thanksgiving.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it for this one. Like I said, in about a couple weeks, Nick is going to pick a 30 for 30 that we'll review. And then, Hank, if you want to dig into the catalog and, like I said, another one you've already seen, like Long Gone Summer, that's another good one like you talked about. But we'll maybe find another one. But I want to thank Hank for hanging out and reminiscing about the Super Bowl 52 champions, Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.